Hello everyone, I'm Leo from Susan's family. Today, I'm bringing you the Morning Breeze Cashmere Scarf in dark gray. The scarf consists of the main part and the tassels. We'll start by knitting the main part. After completing it, we'll attach the tassels at the corresponding positions. First, let's talk about the main part. It is divided into an increasing section and a decreasing section. We start with the foundation chain, and then knit the increasing section. Then, continue knitting the decreasing section. This scarf uses the method of starting and working the knit stitches as you go. We work back and forth in rows. Next, let's take a look at the pattern chart. The chart I have here is for teaching purposes only. Please refer to the actual project in your hands. The chart is in this grid format. Each square in the chart represents one stitch. When counting the number of stitches in each row, just count the number of squares. Then, match the number of loops on the straight needle. The numbers on the side of the chart indicate the row numbers. Arrows show the direction of knitting. Odd numbered rows are worked on the right side. Read the chart from right to left. Even numbered rows are worked on the wrong side. Read the chart from left to right. At the same time, work the opposite stitch techniques on the wrong side. A variety of stitch techniques are used in this project. The chart will mark all the stitch techniques used. I won't go through each one in detail. Now, let me demonstrate the specific knit technique. First, start with a slip knot. To make it easier for you to see clearly, I'll use cotton yarn for this demonstration. The colors are random. For specific yarn, the color scheme, and hook sizes, please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. Make a slip knot with the yarn. Leave the yarn tail a bit longer. This makes it easier to weave in the ends later. Pick up the knitting needle with your left hand. Insert it into the loop. Slightly tighten it. This is the first stitch. This stitch will be a knit stitch. Hold the other knitting needle with your right hand, as if you were holding a pen. Wrap the yarn around your pinky finger once. Gently pinch the yarn with your ring finger and middle finger. Place the yarn between your index finger and middle finger. This is the basic posture for knitting with straight needles. Next, place the right knitting needle above the yarn. Insert it from top to bottom into the loop on the left knitting needle. Use your right index finger to hold the yarn. Yarn over and pick up the yarn. Pull it through, and place it on the left knitting needle. Don't pull the yarn too tight, otherwise, it will be difficult to pick up the stitches later. This is the second stitch. Continue casting on. Place the right knitting needle above the yarn. Insert it from top to bottom between these two stitches. Yarn over. Pick up the yarn. Pull it through, and place it on the left knitting needle. This is the third stitch. Let's take a look. Each time you insert the needle, it goes between two loops. Continue knitting and casting on the next stitch. Pay attention. Don't pull the yarn too tight. It's okay if it's slightly loose. This is the fourth stitch. The casting on is done. The cast on row doesn't count in the row number. Now we'll start working row 1. The chart for this row starts from right to left. This row is represented by blank squares in the chart. It indicates knit stitches. Start with the first stitch. Insert the right needle from top to bottom into the first loop. Pay attention, you're inserting into the loop, not between two loops. Yarn over and pick up the yarn. At the same time, release the loop on the left needle. One knit stitch is complete. Continue with the second stitch. Insert into the loop. Yarn over and pick up the yarn. Another knit stitch is done. We'll continue using the knit stitch method to complete this row. You can see below a braid-like texture. The yarn tail is on the left side. The side you see is the right side. This completes the first row. Now, move on to the second row. Turn the workpiece. The chart for this row starts from left to right. Since the chart shows the texture of the right side of the fabric, you need to work the stitches in reverse. The purl stitch symbols in this row should be worked as knit stitches. Insert into the loop. Yarn over and pick up the yarn. One knit stitch is done. We'll continue using the knit stitch method. Finish this row. Row 2 is completed. Move on to row 3. The chart for this row starts from right to left. Knit 2 stitches. You will reach the yarn over. The symbol for a yarn over is a circle. Bring the yarn from front to back over the right needle. The yarn over is done. Knit 1 stitch. You'll notice there is one extra loop here. This is the loop corresponding to the yarn over. Knit 1 more stitch. Row 3 is completed. Move on to row 4. The chart for this row starts from left to right, and you will work the opposite stitch pattern. For odd numbered rows, the chart starts from right to left. For even numbered rows, it starts from left to right. I won't repeat the explanation. Knit 2 stitches. 1 purl stitch. Bring the yarn above the right needle. Insert from the bottom up into the loop. Yarn over and draw through. At the same time, release the loop from the left needle. 1 purl stitch is complete. Bring the yarn back below the right needle. 2 knit stitches. Row 4 is completed. Now, I'll show you a method to count rows. Each braid represents 1 row. The braid at the bottom is formed by the starting chain. It doesn't count as a row. Start counting from the braid above it. 1, 2, 3. Plus, the loops on the knitting needle also count as 1 row. So, we have completed 4 rows here. You can also count the textured ridges. 1 textured ridge represents 2 rows. Now, let's work on the 5th row. Knit 2 stitches. Move to the slip stitch of the knit stitch. This stitch spans 2 rows. For the first row, knit normally. 1 yarn over. Bring the yarn from front to back over the right needle. The yarn over is done. Knit 2 stitches. The 5th row is complete. Now, let's work on the 6th row. Work the opposite stitch pattern. Knit 2 stitches. Bring the yarn to the top of the right needle. 1 purl stitch. Insert from the bottom up into the loop. Yarn over and draw through. At the same time, release the loop from the left needle. 1 purl stitch is done. Move to the slip stitch at the knit stitch. Work the opposite stitch pattern on the wrong side. You need to work a purl float. Place the yarn above the right needle. Pick up the loop from the left needle with the right needle. 1 purl float is completed. Bring the yarn back below the right needle. For the purl stitch, bring the yarn back to the top of the right needle. For the knit stitch, bring the yarn back to the bottom of the right needle. I won't repeat this in the following steps. 2 knit stitches. Row 6 is completed. Now move on to row 7. Knit 2 stitches. Move to the slip stitch at the knit stitch. This stitch technique spans 2 rows. Work the knit stitches normally on the first row. 3 knit stitches. Row 7 is completed. Now start row 8. 2 knit stitches. One purl stitch. 1 purl stitch with a yarn over. Place the yarn in front of the right needle. The right needle directly picks up the loop from the left needle. 1 purl stitch with a yarn over is completed. 2 knit stitches. Row 8 is completed. Now start row 9. 3 knit stitches. One yarn over. 3 knit stitches. Row 9 is completed. Now start row 10. 2 knit stitches. 1 purl stitch with a yarn over. 1 purl stitch. 1 purl stitch with a yarn over. 2 knit stitches. Row 10 is completed. Now continue with rows 11 to 20. Everyone, follow the method you've learned to complete these rows. Next, start row 21. Knit 3 stitches. 1 yarn over. Then, work a right slanting decrease of 2 stitches into 1. Start by working a knit stitch. Slip 1 stitch on the left side. Then knit 1 stitch. Next, pick up 1 unworked stitch with the left needle. Cover the 1 stitch on the left side, and slip it off. The right slanting decrease of 2 stitches into 1 is now completed. You can see that the right side loop is above the left side loop. 5 knit stitches. Row 21 is completed. Now continue with row 22. 2 knit stitches. 1 purl stitch as a float. 4 purl stitches. 1 purl stitch as a float. 2 knit stitches. Row 22 is completed. Now continue with row 23. 4 knit stitches. 1 yarn over. 1 knit stitch, right slanting decrease of 2 stitches into 1. 1 yarn over. 4 knit stitches. Row 23 is completed. Now continue with row 24. 2 knit stitches. 1 purl stitch as a float. 5 purl stitches. 1 purl stitch as a float. 2 knit stitches. Row 24 is completed. The remaining rows can be completed by everyone according to the method learned. Complete them on your own. There are many rows to knit, so pay attention to checking the stitch count as you go. If you run out of yarn during the knitting process, you can tie a knot to join the yarn. I'll demonstrate the method for joining yarn using a small sample. The stitch count and row count for the small sample can be random. Leave 10 centimeters of each yarn tail. Tie a knot with the new yarn. Pull tight and pull it to the base. That's how you join the yarn. Continue following the chart and knit with the new yarn. Make sure the knot from joining the yarn stays on the wrong side of the fabric. You can start weaving in the ends after a few rows. Begin weaving in the ends. Here, I'll demonstrate the method for weaving in the ends. Thread the yarn tail onto a darning needle on the wrong side of the fabric. Weave in the ends following the texture. Make sure the yarn tail doesn't show on the right side of the fabric. You can weave in a few more stitches. Then trim any excess yarn tails. That's how you hide the ends. You can use this method whenever you need to join yarn. That covers the remaining rows. We've finished the increasing section up to this point. Next, we'll work on the decreasing section. One side will continue to be worked straight up. The other side will be worked with continuous even decreases. The scarf will form a long triangle. Now, let me demonstrate with a sample piece. Next, we'll work row 1. The sample can have any number of stitches and rows. 7 knit stitches. One K2 tog, knit 2 together. Insert the right needle from left to right, through both loops. Knit 1 stitch. That completes the K2 tog. You can see that the left loop is above the right loop. 1 yarn over. 1 K2 tog, knit 2 together. One yarn over. 2 knit stitches. From the first K2 tog to the last knit stitch. This forms one pattern repeat. Repeat this pattern across the row. Follow the chart instructions. Just repeat the pattern. 1 K2 tog, knit 2 together. 3 knit stitches. Row 1 is completed. Now start working row 2. 2 knit stitches. 1 purl stitch with a yarn over. Continue purling until you have 3 stitches left. One purl stitch with a yarn over. 2 knit stitches. Row 2 is completed. Continue working the remaining rows. Everyone, follow the method you've learned. Refer to the charts and work until the last row. Now we'll start the last row with a bind off. Watch me demonstrate with a sample. First, knit 2 stitches. Then pick up the first stitch on the left needle. Cover the next stitch. This completes the bind off for 1 stitch. Continue with 1 more knit stitch. Then pick up the first stitch on the left needle. Cover the next stitch. This completes the bind off for another stitch. Continue to bind off the last stitch. Then leave a 5 cm tail and cut the yarn. Pass the yarn tail through the loop. Pull tight. Complete the remaining rows. Up to this point, the decreasing section has been covered. At the same time, the main part is also complete. After completing the main part, you need to attach tassels to both sides of the scarf. The tools needed for making the tassels and the number of rounds to wrap can be found in the pattern chart. I will now demonstrate a method for making the tassels. You can learn this method first. Please watch the demonstration. Method for making tassels. Prepare a piece of thick cardboard that is the same length as the desired tassel length. That is, if the desired tassel length is 6 centimeters, then the cardboard should also be 6 centimeters long. First, cut 2 lengths of yarn for later use. Then, wrap the yarn around the cardboard. The number of rounds you wrap can be determined based on actual needs or the amount of remaining yarn. If you want to make a multicolored tassel, combine the colors together and wrap them round the cardboard together. Be mindful not to wrap too tight. After wrapping the desired number of rounds, take one of the prepared yarn tails and insert it through the loops on the cardboard. Then tie a knot to secure it. Pull the yarn tail tight. Insert it again. And tie another knot. Secure it tightly. Then remove the loops from the cardboard. Cut the yarn tails. Cut the threads at the bottom. Trim them neatly. Take another piece of yarn and wrap it about 1 centimeter below the top. Wrap a few rounds. And tie a knot to secure it. Make sure it is secured tightly. Hide the yarn tails inside the tassel. Then trim the bottom slightly. You can use the yarn tails from the top to attach the tassel to the fabric. Like this. The tassel is completed. The tassel is done. Attach it to both sides. Now watch me demonstrate with a small sample. Thread the yarn tail through the sewing needle. Insert it from the back to the front. Come out through the gap in the middle. Thread it back into the tassel. Sew back and forth 2 or 3 times. Tie a knot on the wrong side to secure it. Hide all the yarn tails inside the tassel. One tassel is done. Everyone can follow the same method to complete and secure the other tassel. That's it for the tassel tutorial. And that completes the entire scarf making tutorial. If you have any unclear points during the knitting process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website, Susan's Family. Support your handwork experience. Enjoy the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.